Quickly do intros. Holly, starting with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Holly Finch, Executive Director of the Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation. Welcome to Book Club Part 2. This is where we're going to go through the book, and I appreciate the opportunity to host this event. I've learned a lot, and I enjoyed the book, and I did read it cover to cover. I started reading and couldn't put it down, actually.
And Holly, you've been a fantastic support. Thank you. Barbara Allen, Rita and I decided, I guess at Christmas time, at the Executive Women Christmas party, that when Fran's book came out, we needed to have a book club. So that's how this all started. A past president from ages and ages ago. Rita.
Hi, everybody. Rita Barretto, and I'm past president ages and ages ago, right after Barbara Allen, which was 30 years ago. So it's so exciting to be involved in the very first Executive Women Book Club. And I think it's extra exciting because the topic, and it's being covered every single day in the media. So great to be here.
Yes. Julia.
Hi, everybody. I'm still Julia Hathaway. I am a postdoc up at Stony Brook University. I work for the Alda Center for Communicating Science. And my focus and my research is on helping people talk about climate change so that we can do something about it. And that involves understanding all the barriers that we throw up for ourselves. And they are, it's fascinating, and it's imperative that we talk more about climate change.
We've got two Lisas, so let's start with Lisa Hurtis.
Hello, I'm Lisa Hurtis. I am a nonprofit consultant. My firm is called Donor Maven. I'm on the board of Executive Women and on the scholarship and WILA committees for Executive Women this year.
Fran.
Hi, I'm Fran Hathaway, and I was a president back in the the Pleistocene area, I guess it was. And I am a writer.
Okay. Minx.
So I'm a president. We've got like 6 presidents here. That's pretty good. 2013, 14, and I am a coach, longtime coach, and an author of lots of books, and a poet. And I do work for Elders Action Network on climate awareness, sustainability awareness, social justice awareness. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte Pelton. I am a past president too. I followed Minx 14, 15. I've been a longtime member of Executive Women. Michelle Gurto recruited me to join when I became a CEO, and once again, still involved in sponsorships for WILA, so expect a call. That's what I do.
Lisa Trout.
Hi, everybody. I am a guest, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so very much. I am on the advisory board for lifelong learning, and both Lisa Hurtis and Barbara Allen are my neighbors. So I live in a good neighborhood.
Lucky you.
Anne.
Whoops. Oh, Ann Messer here. Hi, Lisa. We serve on the advisory board together for lifelong learning. And I'm delighted to be here. I'm so sorry I missed the first book club meeting because I would have loved to have been part of it. I'm an avid reader, and climate change is something I'm very passionate about. And if you haven't watched the latest documentary on Zac Efron's Down to Earth, there are a number of segments that deal with climate change that are fantastic, from Costa Rica to Peru to Iceland to here in the United States, specifically California and the fires. So very happy to be here. Thank you.
We're happy to have you. Kathy. Kathy?
Yes, I had to unmute. I'm a little slow pulling the trigger. Kathy McGuire here. I'm a sustainability consultant for the hospitality and tourism industry, and I'm the Vice President of Programs and Education this year for Executive Women. Thank you.
Okay, and Michelle.
Hi, this is Michelle Gurto. I'm also a past president. I'm CPA primarily. My clients are in the nonprofit world. I was on the Zoom call in Tampa for the first meeting, and I'm actually in Palm Beach County right now, and I was at a client, so I'm on the phone. So I apologize I couldn't be there on Zoom, but I wanted to participate for a while tonight. And thank you again to the organizers, and excited to hear from Julia and Fran and the rest of the book club. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, great. And Holly, you said Virginia Spencer is about to get on also?
I just resent her the login, so let's hope she'll be joining us. I'm going to send us
Okay,
numbers.
I'm sure she will. Okay, to start things.
Let me just say, I got regrets from Penny Redford, who helped to be on the call tonight as the sustainability manager for West Palm, but she's got home issues and sends her regrets. So,
okay. Thank you, Charlotte. All right, to start our Zoom meeting today, we have something really terrific that Julia is going to share. She has put together a PowerPoint that, the short PowerPoint that has general information about climate change and specifically about Florida. So,
Yeah.
if you've got the floor.
Could someone enable sharing for me, please?
Share screen.
Yeah, I just
to
need
make
to.
her a host, I think.
Okay. No, host disabled it.
I think you need.
Holly has to do it.
Holly will do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Let me just make this pretty.
Okay.
All right, everybody see that PowerPoint?
Yep.
Title
Yeah.
slide? Okay, great. So as I said, my firm belief is that if we don't talk about climate change, we won't act on it because it takes deliberation in informal channels to actually do things. And I'll begin. This is only a 12-slide PowerPoint. First of all, it's real. If human beings weren't impacting the climate, we would be in a slight cooling phase right now. It's us. The last National Climate Assessment was 2014. The current administration is sitting on work to do the next one. But basically, we just need to think of our industrial activities that produce CO2 and methane and other greenhouse gases as things that emanate from our activities that collect in the higher atmosphere and become something of a blanket. That's a good metaphor for understanding. And when you put a blanket on and you can't get out from under it, sometimes you get hot and it's not very comfortable. So the earth is not very comfortable. There is no controversy about whether climate change is real and human caused. Unfortunately, people still say, I'm not a scientist and therefore I can't speak to the issue. That's an unfortunate dodge, and it's an old one. This number is actually a little bit old. It's closer to 99 point something. And these are climate scientists, because a lot of times in the media, people who are not climate scientists will be asked to speak, and they are not expert. Okay, this is from this year. It's only from the first part of this year. It's fueling disasters everywhere, and as we were talking about before opening, it is fueling more and turbocharged hurricanes. When the water is warmer and hurricanes are out over open water, they can amp up like nobody's business these days. So the next couple of slides are relative to Florida. You probably know a lot of them. Higher temperatures, we all know. They cause more frequent and longer heat waves. They affect the oceans, weather patterns, everything. Sea ice. We don't have sea ice here, but the dramatic warming in the Arctic affects our weather here. You know, the idea of the polar vortex, the idea of the atmospheric waves. If there's no longer cold in the Arctic and the warmer air in the the lower 48, then there's no more channel for the atmospheric currents to go through. And so it becomes wobbly. And that's why it's sometimes called global weirding. It's not that we're getting colder or hotter, it's that we're getting weird weather. So an additional concern in Florida, in addition to extreme weather events, is coral reef bleaching. Basically, that means that the little algae that live within corals become so stressed that they are expelled from the coral. And this is something that we've all heard about. And as a matter of fact, the Great Barrier Reef is in the process of hitting a tipping point. I don't know exactly what the status of Florida's coral reefs are, but bleaching is a continuous and intensifying problem. Other big category of sea level rise, there is a range of expectations depending on whether it's NOAA or the Army Corps of Engineers or other sources. But this is from a recent study from Resources for the Future, which is a Washington, D.C. based think tank. And they have, you know, it's a probabilistic sort of science. So they try to provide you a least case and worst case scenario so that you can get a sense. But a lot of people are basically 6 inches above the water table in South Florida, and that's why it's such a problem. In addition, you get drainage issues and saltwater intrusion already, and I wish Penny were here because she could speak to this, but they're having to pump new wells because certain wells have become contaminated. And of course, we all, you know, I'm here in Long Island, I still feel like a Floridian. Our drinking water resources are our aquifer. So we have a huge tourist industry, we have a huge agricultural industry, and all of that depends on abundant drinking water. And this is what it looks like. As you guys are talking, docks are submerged, and people have flooding in their driveways. There was a story a few years ago about a poor baby octopus that got stuck in a parking garage. There are actually fish in the street, and it comes up on sunny days. Here's one that you may not know a whole lot about, and this is one that has been called climate change's evil twin. A lot of people think about the impacts of climate change as a function of the atmosphere. Well, every other breath that the earth takes, and using this metaphor, is ocean. The ocean takes up carbon dioxide, and there's going to be a point at which we will reach a tipping point and it will no longer be able to do that anymore. But it's very alarming because animals that build shells out of calciferous materials, they can no longer do that because that's what acid does. It counteracts that process. And so they're not, these creatures are the, you know, little itty bitty crustaceans and zooplankton that are the basis of the food web. And the big fish and the marine mammals, all the creatures that we really treasure in the marine ecosystem will, if this is not addressed, ultimately there will be a cascade of effects. And it affects us indirectly, it affects us directly. You know, I don't have the stats, but we spend a lot of money in tourism dollars out on the water, and there is an immense fishery that brings a lot of money to Florida. This is one that we touched on a little bit ago when we were talking about climate change and the pandemic. The people that I have worked with in the past, from Physicians for Social Responsibility, for example, they are seeing more kids with asthma show up in their practices, and then finding out through various studies that have been done that, yeah, indeed, there are a myriad of health effects that are directly caused by climate change. When you have pollution coming from fossil fuel industries and power plants. Of course, it's typically people who have fewer resources to move away and their health is impacted. That's the whole climate justice movement that I hope we'll talk a little bit more about before we start tonight. When you have floods, you have water quality illnesses, you have vector-borne disease. We've all heard of Zika. Believe it or not, our food will not be as nutritious. There are just a number of ways in which climate change directly affects human health. The good side of this is that talking about the benefits of acting on climate change means better health for all. And it's kind of a situation where we should be doing this anyway, right, guys? And so in sort of pivoting to benefits, there are a whole lot of economic, social, political benefits to addressing climate change and talking about it. Right now, we are at a point where it is a taboo topic. And this has been reflected in numerous surveys, including the one from Yale and George Mason University that Barbara and Rita provided y'all after our last meeting. There are all sorts of good reasons to act on these issues, but we have to talk about them first. So there's such a thing as climate silence. We talked about that. More than 6 in 10 Americans say they rarely or ever discuss it. And so this group, this wonderful group of self-selected people who care, are really not in any way reflective of the larger populations. The question of how to increase communication is my passion. And I was really just delighted to try to support my mom in creating this wonderful book, which is a platform for helping people, all kinds of people, to just wade in and giving them, as she would put it, a spoonful of sugar with the science to help people start talking about an issue that is really just critically important. And it's accelerating. And so the need for us to talk about climate change is pretty critical.
So let's start off by any questions that we have of Julia. Any comments, questions regarding the presentation she just gave?
Sobering, I know.
Well, I think it's not entirely true. People don't talk about it because we all talk about the weather. You know, is it hurricane season, not hurricane? There's definitely, when it comes to the weather, I think people talk about it. They just don't always draw that line to this is part of a bigger issue. These tornadoes, these fires, these things that are, these repeat hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, there's a reason for it. And we never get to that next step.
Julia, when do you mentioned the tipping point? When, I mean, I've heard all kinds of estimates on that. When is the tipping point when things get so difficult, it's going to be hard to recover? Do you have any feeling for when that could be happening? Any?
No, again, I'm not a climate scientist. I just know from, you know, I have to keep up to a certain extent to do my job. There are various tipping points. We are seeing some. The difficulty is that science is inherently uncertain, and the only time that science is ever exact is in retrospect when the damage is done. So we're seeing the permafrost in the Arctic Circle start to, when the permafrost melts, it all that organic material that is storing carbon is reissued into the air. When we see that the ocean can no longer uptake carbon, that is a tipping point. So there are various tipping points, and we're seeing that, for example, there are tipping points in forests when it's no longer cold enough to keep certain pests in check. And these are turning into completely other ecosystems. So there are multiple tipping points, and scientists are trying really hard to track what those are and to bring it to public awareness because it affects people directly.
If I could jump in here just for a second. Talking about climate change with regular people is, it's too complex. It seems like, oh my God, there's nothing I can do about it. And that's why your book, Fran, Julia, is so good, because you give examples of how it can affect people individually, because the psychology of this thing is that, well, it's not going to happen to me, it's going to happen to those people over there. And you have to make it personal, and you have to get people out of their tribe. You know, they don't want to go outside their tribe, so they don't want to talk about this. The people in their tribe, their friends, family, aren't concerned about it. But if you talk about, well, we're going to have a problem with food, and we're going to have a problem with flooding, and we're going to have a problem with this and that, and this is how it will affect you. That's why your book addresses that, because climate change in and of itself is just too big. It's like, oh my God, there's nothing I can do. It's just too big. I don't understand it anymore.
Kathy, that was great. I'd like to hear some more comments from people about the book. Like, what was your reaction to the book? Did it give you a call to action? Did you, what were your big takeaways when you read the book?
I just wanted to say, when that's what I wanted, more things that individuals could do to reduce their carbon footprint. The book was very good about talking about what's happening and how it can affect the entire planet, basically. But it didn't say, there were 3 or 4 takeaways for individuals, I thought, in the whole book. And I felt like there should be more, and that there should be more that individuals can do to get to a zero carbon footprint individually, because our government isn't doing it. So we need to take it on as individuals.
Minx, then Julia.
So, and Julia and Fran, I'm sure, know about this. There's actually a website you can go to and measure your carbon footprint, and then get all the ways that you can individually make a difference. I'm not sure whether they're in the book or not, because, as I said, I haven't finished it, but I will. But even if you don't yet have those resources, there's no reason why you can't have a further cheat sheet for people who are interested. Here are 20 places to go to figure out how to lower your carbon footprint, because they're out there. There are great sites. It's just getting there and navigate, or finding them, and figuring out which one is the easiest to work from. I mean, my carbon footprint, and I've done a lot of things to reduce it, is still more than double what it should be. I'm using up 2.5 planets. And when you start to see that, and it becomes real just for you, and I recycle, I do lots. I mean, Penny Redford and I are doing a panel as soon as FAU opens up again, on sustainable living, with 2 other speakers. So we're out there and we're doing stuff, but getting people to actually, it either feels too overwhelming, or that nothing I do will make a difference. Well, a lot of little differences do start to make a difference. But
Julia, I just looked up, there's a lot of websites. Is there one you're familiar with that you would recommend? Or Minx, the one that you
Oh, I'd have to look.
I noticed there's several here. Julia, are you aware of one that you would feel is, a good one to look at?
Well, individual actions are really great. We all need to be thoughtful about the way we live, and we shouldn't be hard on ourselves, because we live in a system that constrains us. In South Florida, you have to have a car. But there are certain things that we can do. You can go veggie, and agriculture and transportation are the 2 biggest sources of carbon emissions. But there's another category of action. And this is one that I think that people might really benefit from thinking about. The action that's going to help us get past our systemic problems And I really hope that later on in this discussion, we get back to women and men, gender relating to climate change. I think it's a really important issue. And it's a great way of understanding the way forward. We need to think about collective action. And, you know, it's God bless you, Manx. I try to do my best, but I'm still overshooting as well. And you can be crippled by that overwhelming feeling. And that's just,
if we did everything compared to what industry does, it's not even a drop in the bucket.
it is not. You're absolutely right. And so the way we take back our power is not only just by voting, we have to become climate change citizens. And so that means we get together with the like-minded, and we do much more than vote. Maybe if you're a person who has the means, you can give money. If you're not a person who likes to go to rallies, there are a number of ways in which we can do collective action, but it takes both. Individual actions on their own are not sufficient because, and I'm just going to show my politics here, there is so much money in campaign finance now. There's you know, really just it's you don't have an equal voice as an individual. So it's important to find, I think the tribe can be used in a positive sense, although I really get what you're saying, Kathy, and I appreciate your comments. Find the people who sustain you. There are a lot of activist groups. Not everybody self-defines as an activist, but there are lots of ways to contribute. 350.org is in Hollywood. There are all sorts of climate justice organizations burgeoning in Florida. And I think executive women could take a leadership role in creating opportunities for people to come together on climate change. So you really, to sustain yourself, and I say this as somebody who has been an advocate and an activist and a grassroots organizer, you need to be with people who keep you going, who lift you up. Because climate change is really, the cure to climate change is community.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I was trained by Al Gore and 1,000 other people from 90 plus countries in Miami in 2015 as a climate reality leader as part of his climate reality project. That's one place. Now they're doing them virtually, so people can afford to go because they don't have to fly somewhere and get a hotel and the meals and all that. And they've had more people sign up for that than all combined in-person meetings. Also, the Clio Institute, which is in Miami,
yep.
They train people on how to give presentations about this, and so that's something that we could get involved with as well.
Was that the Clear Institute?
Clio, C-L-E-O. She was a science teacher and started this organization in Miami. It's a great organization. It's on my list, my to-do list with executive women to talk about that.
I would just like to say that on page 198 of the book, it does say, where climate change is concerned, most people feel they can't do anything meaningful as individuals, but when joined, connected with kindred spirits, they see that achievement is possible. So that's right out of the book. And I have another question about the book. At the end, the gentleman speaking received funding from a generous donor. What would have happened if they hadn't had that donor?
Mom, you need to unmute.
Fran, unmute.
The microphone with the red on it, click on the microphone.
Holly and Julia, I think you could unmute also because you're co-hosting.
I can't unmute though. All I can do is ask her to unmute.
Tell her where it is in the top right-hand corner. She needs to tap the screen so that the mute thing comes down. It does on mine anyways.
Fran, top right hand of your photo.
See if there's a picture of a microphone with a red line running through it. Just click on the red
There we
line.
go.
Yeah.
Thanks for the trip. I wanted to start with a couple of little vignettes. I call them the scare the pants off you vignettes, to give us an idea of how far there is to go. First is called Why Experts Call Climate Change the Coming Catastrophe. And these are from experts. Climate change is already making large parts of the country nearly uninhabitable. In time, the bottom half of the county will grow inhospitable, dangerous, and hot. The places in North America where humans have lived for thousands of years will shift, and people may have to leave them. The second snippet is titled, Will Florida Be Lost Forever to the Climate Crisis? Few places on the planet are more at risk from the climate crisis than South Florida, where more than 8 million people are affected by challenges from rising seas to hurricanes. If scientists are right, the lower third of the state will be underwater by the end of the century. I know these things are hard to believe, but I like to think that they give us a little more determination to do what we can about it. To go on to our book. In our book, we tried to gently explain these things. And I hope people will tell us, criticism as well as compliments about what they would like to see different. But we tried gently to alert readers to these coming dangers. And then we'd like to hear from you as to how you would do that and what you need from us, perhaps, that we can help.
I think, Lisa, why don't you restate your question on the end of the book? There was a question, Fran, that Lisa had.
Oh, the seminars and the two gentlemen who got the grant?
The grants, correct.
Well, you have to be left with the feeling that if they hadn't gotten that money, that they would not be able to continue the seminars. Which is a sad thing, because apparently they have been giving them now for a number of months, maybe a year. And they have helped a lot of organizations and various individuals understand better what we're facing. And they're very proud of that, and they've become kind of revered in their community. Here is this 70-year-old, tall, white-haired, dignified man, and this very slim, African-American, handsome guy. And they have been working together wonderfully for all this time. And it would be a shame for them not to be able to continue.
Charlotte, were you going to ask a question?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it's that bringing it back home to us, personally. In my own life, I saw it with my daughter in Santa Barbara with the fires 10 years ago. She's now living in Maine, where the tick population is increased to the point it's ridiculous. They're having well issues with the lack of water. And I'm concerned about that whole area and what's going to happen. But down here, I think we have to make it real for us. I just read an article recently about real estate values and the fact that people want to live on the water. But, Flagler is already flooding. The lake trail is already flooding. These areas in Wellington, I saw pictures this morning with the rain that didn't even last that long, and suddenly everything's flooded. It's a real problem. And I think until we make it personal for us and our economic benefit, but also how it's going to affect our children and our grandchildren, because it kills me that people go, oh, well, that's out in time and it won't affect me. Well, what about your children? What about your grandchildren? What about those future generations? So I think we have to, in this community, and this is maybe something we could, as executive women, tackle, is make it real in terms of the economic costs and the impact on the lives of our children and their offspring.
Charlotte, I'd just like to support what you said. Today I was reading on Axios, and there's a Native American saying that says, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Mm-hmm. So that pretty much goes to what you just said.
Let me go back to what Charlotte said, and we started a little bit of this conversation on the first call, and that is what role could executive women play in engaging key decision makers to create an awareness about the sense of urgency of climate change? So how could we do this? How might we do this? What kind of ideas do you have?
Well, if I could jump in here, I think when you want to get key decision makers in government to do something, I think you have to have the business community behind them. For example, we have a program coming up on Friday. We only have 8 people who are registered. It's called the New Purpose-Driven Economy, and the purpose includes social, environmental, and social issues. And the fact that, you know, we created this program 3 months ago, we only have 8 people. We have to get the business community involved. It's getting the chambers involved. It's very hard when you work with chambers, in my opinion, it's been my experience, that unless they are driving the bus, it's their program that they're putting on. All you can really do, even if you pay the membership dues for every chamber in the county, you can post it on the calendar, but they're not promoting it, they're not advocating it. And I think we need people who are influencers to be in touch with the people who are on the boards and running these chambers, and when you get the business community involved, they're going to get our elected officials involved. That's how I see it.
We had a bit of this conversation last Zoom, but I'd like to probe a little bit further in terms of making it real or personal. What suggestions do you have? There's 14 of us here. From where you sit, the people that you know, the work that you do, what you are doing in the community, what suggestions do you have to make it real and personal?
I'll just jump in here again. I believe if you lead with the economic value in combating climate change for these business leaders, that's where you're going to hit them. If you hit them in the pocketbook, that if we don't do something about this, your business is going to suffer. That the CEO of the World Business Council on Sustainable Development said, those people, those businesses who are not embracing the purpose-driven economy, and they're solely interested in just the bottom line profit, they are not going to survive. They will not survive.
I'd like to disagree with that. I'm a capitalist, and I believe that people are driven, business people are driven by the bottom line, and they're not going to adopt a purpose-driven way of life. That they have shareholders to report to, and investors, and the board of the company will be looking at how they make the company sustainable for the bottom line. And I don't know that purpose-driven missions will be adopted by a majority of companies. I just don't see it.
Charlotte?
Well, I say there are companies out there that are adopting practices. I mean, they, you know, in spite of the fact that they don't have to, not all, but many. And I think the idea that we drive our own business, that we're very vocal about it, using social media and social platforms to say, here's a company I won't support, here's why. Here's a company I will support, here's why. I mean, as executive women, we've got some powerful women in our group, and, you know, to take a stand and put a platform together and go out and talk to business leaders about it is some action that we could take.
Yes, and you can invest in ETFs and companies that have the environmental, social, and I forget what the third portion of it is. And that investing strategy is doing very well. But I'm saying that the companies are not going to be adopting that strategy. That investors are adopting that strategy, not a majority of investors, but some investors, and they've been doing very well with it. Mm-hmm. And it's politically correct at the moment.
I think that there's also a case to be made, and I'd have to go start looking back, that it's profitable in the long run. We don't see it yet, but there's a huge case to be made that in the long run, the companies that adapt in advance are going to grow and will have an impact and will be chosen over other companies. There are a lot of things that are going to change simply because we're going to get scared out of our minds in the next 10 years if we're not already.
Mhm.
Who will gravitate toward companies that are making a difference.
Let me direct this question to Julia and Fran. What ideas do you have? I mean, to continue the dialogue and create excitement and the key stakeholders and so on. What would be what would you like to see?
Jill, how about the role of women?
Okay. You want to elaborate on that, or just you want that covered? Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Did you say you're punting it my way, Mom?
Yes.
Okay, yay. I think
She said the role of women.
We have discussed this many times. The role of women in this situation that we wouldn't think of being particularly open to women.
Yeah. So if yes, exactly. To the question of the costs versus benefits of acting on climate change, the economics are never been more clear. I mean, back in 2013, maybe we had the Risky Business Report, which was Paulson and Company. It's a bunch of luminaries came out and said, if we don't act on climate change, we are going to be completely economically screwed. And if we do act on climate change, the investment is I read a recent report, and I'd have to go back and find it, but the return on investment for Florida is 1.3. So, and elsewhere, it's, orders of magnitude more. But getting to the role of women, the environmental justice movement has a basic tenet that the people who are most affected by pollution or an injustice or, climate change injustice have the power and should be the leaders because they have the standpoint, and that's a theory, standpoint theory, from which to draw. And the reason that I mention a theory, because it can't be called a theory unless it's been tested a bunch of times. So we want to draw on things that we know have been tested and work. I don't want to hog the floor. I want to give it back as soon as possible. I would like just to read a couple of lines from a paper that I wrote recently. I'll do this really, really briefly, and if anybody has any questions, please just interrupt and stop me. I'd rather not talk too much. Research has showed that men and women experience climate change impacts differently. Long-standing inequalities put at risk the material resources required for women to begin to contend with climate change, particularly for women in developing countries. And globally, women are much more likely to be poor. 70% live below the poverty line. Many are farmers. Girls must walk long distances to get water, and they are made more vulnerable by this fact. And the incidence of women going into sex work is increasing because of climate change. The vulnerabilities such as rape and gender violence is on the uptick due to climate change, shown in scientific research. And if that sounds to you like it's a world far away, the inequalities are evident in the highest reaches of the climate decision-making processes. Women are not represented equally in these conferences at the UN and IPCC level. They are underrepresented in media coverage of climate change. And women have been shown to be more effective leaders on climate change, ironically. Women behave differently in the context of climate change than do men. Men are more responsible for carbon emissions. They consume more meat, they drive longer distances. Conversely, women tend to live in a more sustainable way. Societies with greater gender equality have a lower carbon footprint. Women are more likely to have an accurate grasp of the science than men, even though we tend to be self-deprecating about that. So men, when impacted by climate change, have the opportunities to move on. Women tend to mobilize social networks, and they are better advocates. And then finally, climate change denial is one way in which masculinity is constructed in our American society. It is typically in the context of technological and even militaristic forms of action that typically people in power in this country talk about climate change. When women talk about climate change, it is about community and mutual support and remedying these injustices. And what that means is that there have to be these systemic changes so that people can get to where they need to go for their jobs. They can make a decent living. They can get health care. They can have childcare. And educating women and empowering women to act on their own behalf and on behalf of everybody we care about is a demonstrated way forward on climate change. And that's the community action that I think that executive women could play a role in. You all are the women leaders of South Florida, and you have a standpoint that is different than the prominent discourse. I would love to see executive women have a one-day conference with climate justice leaders. It would be just, a containable, manageable project that would really just give voice to a lot of people in Florida who are doing good work.
Minx?
So to build on that, and also to answer the question of, I know you have a purpose-driven businesses event. I think the timing is terrible. You're a week from elections, and I think everybody's head is somewhere else. That doesn't mean it couldn't work. So to move to what you just said, Julia, about doing a conference. There's us, there's the Y, there's Women's Foundation of Florida, which I'm on the board of. There are 5 or 6 women's organizations here that need to do this together. It's what we're asking, and what we need is too big, and it needs a movement. And there are enough women's organizations here that could take it on if we took it on as a coalition, in the same way that Women's Foundation of Florida has been doing a women running for political office, and has invited other organizations, please do this with us. It's not about whose name gets out there. It's that the women who belong to all these organizations and care become a larger coalition that's not just the 150 of us and the 150 at Women's Foundation and whoever's at the Y right now. Charlotte, chime in, because you know this even better than I do. You do all this work.
Yeah, I think, bringing the, to your, back to what Lisa was saying, I do think there are businesses out there that are absolutely leaders in this. I mean, why is it that FPL is taking the leadership in solar in this state right now? Why is it that when I was in Kansas for the first time a few years ago, I'd never been to Kansas, and the rolling plains and the wheat fields had these enormous wind turbines, right? So there are companies that are doing it. And I think rather than focusing on those that don't, why don't we look at the companies in Florida and in our area, FPL certainly being one of them, that are taking a leadership role in climate change? Who are the public leaders? I mean, the city of West Palm under Jerry Moyo, she was the one that brought Penny under her, it was the mayor's office of sustainability. She took it very seriously. Who are the business leaders that are taking it seriously? Who are the nonprofit leaders that are taking it seriously. And let's not worry about those that aren't and don't, and worry about those that do and bring them together. And at the highest levels that we can, and maybe approach an FPL to begin with to talk about, here's something we're thinking about. You know, is there a conversation we could have? And talking about planning it out in time. Obviously, COVID right now, it's impossible. I think this needs to be a meeting in person if possible to make it have the real impact. That would be my thoughts anyway.
If I could jump in here, a little over a year ago, I started planning an event to have Andrew Winston. I don't know if you know who he is. He co-wrote a book called Green to Gold. He wrote his own book called The Big Pivot. He is an eco-strategist. He works with multinational companies all over the world. He's a consultant, an author, and he's become quite a good friend of mine over the past year. And I was planning an event. I went to the Chamber of the Palm Beaches. They said that they would promote the event, but they couldn't give any other help other than that. And I had a very hard time getting enough sponsorships. He's actually from South Florida. He was born in Fort Lauderdale and grew up in Boca. He's very famous, has a TED Talk. I'd be happy to share it with you. And he can speak to the majority of people who lead businesses are men. He knows how to speak to them. But couldn't get enough sponsorships. And anyway, it was in April around Earth Day. And so we would have had to have canceled anyway, but I would really like to revisit that. And as far as our Friday program goes, I've already discussed the fact today even that with so few registrants, I think we need to cancel that event because nobody's thinking about anything but survival and getting past this election right now. So the economy and everything. So my vote today was to cancel this event because I don't want to take up this woman's time when there's only 8 participating. So I would love to see us go forward with having Andrew Winston here. He discounted his speaking fee 25% because he's from here. He can talk to hospitality and tourism and business in general. And I would really like to see us do something like that in the future, an in-person event. I had planned it for the Kravis Center. So anyway, that's where we are with all that.
This conversation is giving me some food for thought. I remember when Rita was president of Executive Women, we'd get big name
That was
people.
a long time ago.
Big name people to come and speak, and everybody needed to attend those meetings. And Rita's philosophy was think big, we can accomplish it. Don't start small. And one of the things that this is creating food for thought, particularly talking about women, is whether you like her or not. I was just reading an article that Jane Fonda, she was going to jail every Friday for protesting, protesting people not accepting climate change. And I was thinking that would be an interesting speaker to have that Executive Women could attract. If she's willing to go to jail every Friday, maybe she'd be willing to come down to Palm Beach County in the winter time and come and address a group of women.
Barbara, I'm sure she would.
Yeah.
If we came up with enough money to do it.
Yeah.
She can get arrested here.
Yeah.
We have another past president who's married as a sheriff.
There you go.
No, I think these are all good ideas. I mean, I guess it's something that would have to go to the Executive Women Board, but I hats off to Julia and Fran for writing the book. And as I think it was Minx who said that it provided an opportunity to read about something that people need to talk about, and maybe they wouldn't have talked about it or thought it was over their head or whatever. So it really planted the seed that you can get a foundation of information that's enough to say you need to pay attention and figure out how to work. I loved your term, Julia. It's something like collaborative, like you can't do it. You couldn't do it yourself. You had collective action that we need. I love that. We needed collective action. And so different, whether it's the Y, the Junior League, other women's organizations or men's organizations, to bring people together in the community to engage in a conversation. It looks like Kathy tried to get something off the ground. Maybe with the chambers, maybe we need to think more broadly and come up with somebody that I think we I think we can get some scientists. I mean, looking to Julia and Fran to get some ideas on who are noted experts, but also somebody that people go, wait, I want to hear what they have to say, whether it's Bill Gates or Jane Fonda, why not?
It could be that the Union of Concerned Scientists has a speakers bureau. I don't know. But they're certainly on the forefront of climate change.
Yeah.
I love the idea of other women's organizations. I know that isn't quite, as logical in this pandemic as it might be elsewhere, but perhaps we could make it so. I think in numbers there is strength. And if there were numbers from a lot of different women's organizations, which don't really get together very often, they could make some noise.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Women's Foundation is doing is we're doing Women on the Run. We're doing it virtually and getting large groups to come, women who want to run for political office. And there's something to be said, even though we're all kind of zoomed out right now and overwhelmed from this, it makes it way more affordable. No rooms, no lunch, no travel. And if it has enough power and impact and interest behind it, and it's done the best way Zoom can be done with breakouts and conversation corners and interest pods, you can create a phenomenal event at almost no cost. And so you can take advantage of the fact that we're in a pandemic. Just because we don't have a choice. So we're in a pandemic. So what do you do with it?
I think that's something we can look at. I just became chair of the Visitors and Convention Center. So we had a board meeting last week, and we have representatives from the Boca Resort and the Breakers and all the other great hotels. And I mean, it's such a tough time. Most of them are still in the 40 percentile in terms of occupancy. Big conferences, maybe some towards the middle of next year, maybe. The Women's Commission I chair for Florida, all travel still stopped until the end of the fiscal year, which is June of next year. And the budget's being looked at every single month. So it may go beyond June. So I can't even travel for the commission. So we got to look at that. So it might be one of those things that we do it in drips. There might be a series, or get some other idea with other collaborative partners on what we might do. But I think in terms of, I love the idea of meeting together, Minx, and more than anything in the world, the hotels do too. But right now, I think FPL has still stopped all travel too. So a lot of the companies, because everybody has a different circumstance and they're trying to keep safety number one, and rightfully so. But so we have to think about how long-term can we wait? And can we do it in a way that if we get people to get on board for a couple hours, maybe that's what we do. I think, Charlotte.
Here's what I know when I advise my clients. It's like I tell them, imagine your board of directors with if you had the perfect board, that you would say, with these people, there's nothing we can't accomplish, right? And imagine who those are. And I think for us to imagine, if we had these people in our community who are the real leaders, and begin that planning process now to say, we need to think about the various segments that need to be represented there. And think about, if we go get these people, we're not going to get everybody, but with the right list of people who are behind it and supporting it, it can be successful, because it's going to be one of those, wow, I want to be there because look who's there behind this thing. And I think that's the place to start. I mean, Minx, we did that leadership conference a number of years ago with PNC Bank, and it was wildly successful, and they gave us $50,000 right off the bat to plan it. And it was because we had big aspirations. Somebody earlier was talking about big aspirations, and they're, again, with the right people behind it, and take that time to do it, so that even if we do wait till next year, Rita, to your point, I think people coming together personally can make all that difference in the world. And maybe we could recruit right now to get the Breakers or somebody to agree to host it, knowing that getting something on their books, they're going to be thrilled to get behind it. But think about who they are. Who are in the hospitality industry? If you look in here, who in construction, if you look at the big three here, right? It's ag, it's construction, it's tourism. Who are the players in there that are really behind the climate issues and really being green, right? And promote them. Let them be the partners in this.
Yeah, I think what we have to do is probably outside this conversation, because it's 6:30, but have a planning session and be thoughtful about who's our audience. And you pull this thing in a boatload of directions. Is it, and what do we, when somebody hires me to speak, I always ask 2 questions. At the end of the presentation or the day or whatever, what do you want them to know and how do you want them to feel? So I think we have to be like, who's the audience? Why would they go? What are we giving them that nobody else is giving them? And what do we want them to walk away with? Because we can't be all things to all people. Is it women and we want to engage women, or is it the public in general? Or to Charlotte's point, are they the top 3 industries that are driving the economy in Palm Beach County or in Florida? So I think we need to probably have a planning committee and think through that as well as a calendar.
Well, I like the idea that the audience is women, because we're when you think about the home, right? Women tend to be the ones making the decisions about food, about clothing, about the things in their house, etc. So I like the idea that we're speaking to women, and what impact does it have on me? When I think of recruiting the businesses and those leaders, I think about them being at the table to be a part of helping this thing happen. Because with the right leaders behind it, people will want to come. But that's my view. I'm not saying not the general public. Obviously, anybody is welcome, but my view would be with these are women talking to women.
You know, I chair the Florida Commission on the Status of Women, and this last year we went around the state and spoke to women all over the state, and we did an online survey, and we surfaced 5 key areas that they're concerned with. Obviously, finance is one, housing, health, leadership positions, and I have an annual report if anybody wants one, and it's online. But anyway, nothing came up. Now that I think of what Julia and Fran were saying, nothing ever came up about climate change, although you're talking and you're saying that's one of the biggest things impacting women. So we probably have an obligation and to make sure people understand that they need to know about this. And there's so much talk right now about the she session is what they're calling it, because women are much more impacted by COVID than anybody else, because they're caregivers and because the hospitality jobs that have been lost and so on. So this might just be another new area that we need to make sure people know about.
Lisa, then Julia, then Minx.
I wanted to say that the Community Foundation for Palm Beach and Martin counties has done something called At the Table, where they've gotten people from all segments of the community together to discuss the top of mind issues that they have. And climate change was not among the top 3. I'm not sure it was even in the top 10. Affordable housing was the top issue for people in Palm Beach County. But the Community Foundation would be a good partner for this.
Sure. Julia?
Minx, I think you were before me.
Right, and then you can probably answering this, but what I was thinking of is, okay, so if the title was, this is not the best title, but this is in the direction, climate change, why it matters to you as a woman, because we're not thinking about it. I mean, we're thinking about it for a lot of reasons, but you'll get a lot. That's why Elders for Climate Action is such a powerful organization, because every grandmother is there. Every grandparent cares about what the legacy that they're leaving their kids. So if it's like, yeah, it's big and I know there's flooding and this and that, what do you mean I'm not going to be able to get food that's good for me? What do you mean I'm not going to be able do the list, you know? But in a way, and you have to do like what you did in the book, you have to do it in a way that there's a hopeful, oh, but we could still do this. It's not too late to do that. Because if you just doom and gloom us, people are going to go out and get a drink when it's done. You know, you just go into overwhelm and you don't want to do anything. So there has to be a light no matter, and you have, Julia, lots of, this is what can still be done. There are a lot of Al Gore has that too. You know, it's not too late if we start right now. As a matter of fact, who was it? Someone just is coming out with a book, and someone you know, Reverse Climate Change in One Generation. It's coming out very soon, and it's somebody very famous.
Gates?
Heard him speak. I can't remember who. Sorry. Senior, not a good senior moment. One of the other kind of senior moments. But so that, you know, climate change, hey women, why it matters to you. That doesn't mean you wouldn't get men and corporations with males because they sell to women. But anyway, that's just a thought. If you're trying to gear it in a direction that, as Lisa said, nobody's even talking about this. Rita said, nobody's even on anyone's radar screen, and it should be. And the faster it goes on someone's radar screen, the better. Sorry, go ahead, Fran. Sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize.
Well, I just wanted to say that something occurs to me that I think is relevant here. You're right that all of these issues have not been covered very well in the papers or on the television or whatever, which frustrates a lot of people like us, you know, who are very concerned about them. But there is something about striking while the iron is hot, because I think you're going to see a lot more interest in climate change. I feel it, and I see it in the magazines and the newspapers and the other things that I read. And I think, you know, that would be an encouragement, I think, to people, that they would be maybe riding the wave, you know, that is now coming.
Julia?
Yeah, thank you. I think that doing some sort of a forum where women climate leaders could come and share their experience, share information, but really their experience to really help people connect is very valuable, because there is no dealing with climate change unless we are going to respond and remedy these inequities. These systemic problems are what drive climate change. I know that sounds far-fetched, but it's the truth, and I don't want to go on about it. And hearing from these individuals would not only provide a really clear picture of why that is, but a really energizing and impactful path forward. The reason to act on climate change is to have a better society, and they go hand in hand. The last thing I'll say is that I have pitched for my mom to do a monthly interview with some of these female climate leaders. And if it could be disseminated through Executive Women, interviewing is her great gift. And it could be a way to really ramp up to any kind of a forum that you guys might want to do.
I'd like to be able to come up with, particularly for Executive Women, so maybe the top 10 actionable recommendations that can be reviewed, analyzed, and see what needs to be done to address each of them. A lot of wonderful things have come out, but I'd like to kind of finalize it. And if everybody could speak up and provide, based upon what you have heard, what you think the top recommendation is, and then we'll keep going until everybody's had an opportunity to share. Rita, go ahead.
I'd say form a planning committee to create to create some kind of forum, whether it's a one-day conference or whatever. A collaborative planning committee, you know, with other partners in the community.
Okay. All right.
How about creating a goal that's exciting?
Creating what, Fran?
Creating a goal that's exciting. Something people would like to flock to and be part of.
So how about the fact that 10 years ago, a group of people in this community came together and did a 10-year plan to end homelessness. And there's a lot of stuff going on in that realm. Now, have they solved the problem? No, but there's way more attention being paid to it in this community than ever before. So how about a 10-year plan to end, you know, to affect climate change in Palm Beach County? I don't know. Just something, like you said, something exciting and concrete. And by the way, Fran, I think Greta Thunberg needs to be one of your interviewees. Just say, let's start big.
She would draw an audience, wouldn't she?
She totally would.
Boy, Wonderful.
Well, nowadays, since you can do it on a Zoom call.
That's exactly right.
doable.
Even if we had a live event and she could show up by Zoom, it would still
Right.
work, trust me.
That's true. Absolutely true.
Who I would like to put you in touch with is the woman who runs Elders for Climate Action nationally and the woman who runs it locally, because they would be a great addition to this conversation. You start with who's out there doing it. Penny Redford is extraordinary and has a wealth of information. She runs our sustainable initiative for Palm Beach, West Palm.
She's got major connections. Absolutely could help us identify the right people.
So one of the things that was so disappointing, and maybe Lisa, you remember, Penny and Jerry Moyo and Terry, who runs our restaurants, sustainable food restaurants, and one other person. And I was going to be the moderator for a program that was going to happen at FAU, Lifelong Learning. And it was scheduled to go, except it wasn't going to work well online, not with everything that's going on, so we temporarily postponed it. Oh, the fourth one was Holly Lichtenstein, who did Al Gore's program. And Kathy could do it also. I mean, Kathy's certainly as informed as anyone out there in terms of sustainable climate.
Okay.
Barbara, I think another action item, probably one of the first action items, is we can come up with all the ideas, but it's the Board of Executive Women. So
Yes.
I think one of the first action items is to take it to the board and see what kind of interest there is in this. And then if they have the interest, engage the board around who the collaborative partners might be, and then set those big goals that were discussed and some kind of timeline, along with a budget and so on, just to see, what it could look like.
You have 3 board members on this call.
Okay, good.
We have some
They're in charge. They're the ones who are in charge. So.
Okay, but those board members, not trying to put you on the spot, I mean, what do you think of the suggestion that Rita just provided?
Well, I'm not going to speak for them, but I would say probably you get your list of 10 recommendations together and I'll help you circulate them to the programs committee, of which Kathy McGuire is the board liaison. And that's kind of the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I guess what I would like to do first, because there's so many ways we can approach this. I'd like to have, of course, getting with the board and offering the suggestion that we want to pursue this in some way, shape, or form, and then get into a planning session where we decide how we're going to approach that and implement that. But first, getting the board approval, it can be broad. It needs to be broad in the beginning, but all of this stuff affects women, and that's what we're all about. And I can't even imagine the board saying no. So I would like to pursue that, and I'm so excited that you women are involved in this. And thank goodness this book club was created, because I've been shouting at people for 15 years in Palm Beach County, leadership in Palm Beach County, deaf ears. So thank you.
Well, congratulations to Fran and Julia for bringing this topic to light and writing this terrific book. And I think, I don't know if we can come up with 10 now, Barbara. I think it's really going to the board and then putting together that planning committee. But then but I'd also put in there that Fran, as a past president, has and I think volunteered, or the statement has come that she would be willing to interview some leaders, and maybe Executive Women would be the forum that could be used to publicize those engaging conversations. Would that be fair enough, Fran? Is that?
I would be happy to do that.
So that could be a component of it that they can entertain, but I would say it goes to the board, and I would think everybody on this call would be willing to play some kind of role in the planning, the sounding board, or something in the process. I think it's exciting. I mean, it just hit me when we started talking about all these all these articles about women's issues, and the same ones always come up. You know, not enough women on boards, not enough, you know, money, not enough housing, but nobody said anything. I've never read a report that has said anything about climate change and women. It sounds like they're out there. Julia mentioned them, but boy, they need to be out there front and center. And so Executive Women has a great opportunity to be the ones who drives that awareness.
Absolutely.
And so come up with a really sexy list of women. By that, who? Greta Thunberg for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Even, who's the woman at FPL? You're going to remember Charlotte, who worked so diligently with us. It's one of the leaders at FPL. She might be willing to be interested.
Pam Roush?
Huh? Yes,
Pam.
Pam.
I'm having lunch with her this week.
Good. Talk to her. Tell her I say hi.
She'd be good.
And she'd be great because they got FPL involved.
There's a Women in Energy forum of all the top women leaders in the energy business too. So she would have her finger on the pulse of who those individuals would be.
And then Fran could do this series of interviews with names that are, wow, like what Charlotte said, you got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Not like you can hear them anywhere else, and you're not going to be in a place where you can actually engage, submit your questions beforehand, blah, blah, blah. Have an inside track.
And
Women are really the unsung heroes. Pardon me, Barbara.
No, go ahead.
Christine Figueres is the person who has really made the UN work on climate change. Mary Robinson, is it Robertson or Robinson? I think it's Robinson. Yeah. The former president of Ireland, she has a wonderful book out, and it's an easy read, and it's all about her work trying to bring women to international conferences to speak their truth. And there is nothing like somebody speaking from their standpoint, their experience. And so I'm very excited and gratified that you guys are thinking about it.
What makes it possible is we don't have to fly them all here. They don't have to take time because we're in a pandemic. So we're bringing the world leaders right to your desktop.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fran can do the interviews. I love this idea. I'm in. Count me in.
Well, it would be a little different, and that's important too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got tons of organizations in this county, and what's different about any of them?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to have some media coverage of this.
Maybe.
I'm thinking that would be important. Well, Executive Women is the driver. It needs to go out beyond that to help create, as Julia, you've said many times, is to create that conversation.
Well, Emily Atkins has a wonderful, Kathy, if you don't get Emily Atkins heated emails, she is awesome. I mean, she calls herself a pissed off climate journalist, and she does a beautiful job. So there are lots and lots of people who are out there doing excellent work.
Great, so you and your mom can come up with a list easily of people. And if you have a couple of them who are local, like Pam Roush, interspersed with national figures and name figures like Greta. It could be a huge draw. Especially
we are going to be, well, I'm sorry, Minx, go ahead.
No, that's okay, I'm done.
We're going to be putting together a synopsis of what came from the Zoom meetings, and the most important things. I mean, we've got some recommendations to start with. Anything else that should be included in that to share first, Holly, with you and all of the members?
Well, just to the time, I'm a big person on timelines. The board does meet this month in about a week and a half, so I'm not sure this will be, if you're going to have something prepared that quickly. Otherwise, the next board meeting won't be until January, so just keep that in mind.
All right, so what is it? What is the date of the next board meeting then?
Well, for me to have all the board reports to go to the board in a package, the deadline is Thursday noon.
This Thursday noon?
Thursday noon, because the meeting is the 27th.
Could you at least have a sexy list to give them to capture their attention?
And the next board meeting won't be till January 26th.
So if you plant a seed now and then you have until January to come up with details?
Yeah, I think if somebody takes the lead, I guess, Holly, you could take it unless one of the board members wants to take the lead, put it on as an agenda item to give a summary of the book club and the compelling reason to entertain forming a collaborative group of people, community organizations, whatever, to put together and hatch a plan with the ultimate goal of raising the awareness about this as a women's issue and a huge environmental issue. And I think if we have 3 or 4 board members on the call, they're the voices. They're the ones to sell it. And all the ask is there approval to form a committee to look into options on how executive women and other organizations could pull their energy together to develop some kind of forum, one-day conference, whatever it is, to make sure women understand the issue, why it's important to them, their community, the next generation, and what potentially can be done. So I mean, I think if you do that, then it's just an ask of, is there support for doing this, and adopt it.
So you have names. So I guess I need a little more structure of these are the 5 people who have asked that a committee be formed and they're willing to move forward, kind of a thing. Because of course now the big focus is Willa. Mm-hmm. Everything is focused on Willa for April. And so I need sort of some more structured recommendation of what exactly the ask is and what exactly their role is right now.
Well, I think Fran was saying the sense of urgency, do you want to hit it while it's hot? And it is a hot topic. Yes. I think at this point, unless I'm wrong, you guys jump in, the ask is, one is to make a statement about what was learned with the book club, with climate change, and the awareness that was created of this being an issue that particularly is an issue that women should be aware of and take action on. And but also we feel like, we don't feel like executive women can do it all by themselves. This is a perfect opportunity for them to take the lead, working with other groups to devise some kind of approach that will result in a greater awareness, understanding, and energy around climate change.
Yes. I'm happy to take the lead on this because this is something that's very, very near and dear to my heart. I've spent the last 15 years of my life working in this field, and I will do that. And I believe that we do need to incorporate all of the other women's organizations in what we do. I think our strategic planning meeting was only through the end of this year. We have not planned, with the exception of postponing Willa several times. We don't have anything programmed for next year, which is what I wanted to bring up at the next board meeting. We need to start thinking about next year, and I know that this is the topic we need to address.
Great.
I'd like to add too that I think that there's weight in the people that have been in this book club, and the fact that we can, for those of us who are willing to say, we're on board with this, there's some serious weight of past presidents, et cetera, at this table. And I think that when they see that list, that's going to have some definite influence. And especially if we are clear that we have no intention of having any impact on Willa, that's not what we're talking about. That's
right.
Yeah.
Really separate. So I'm sitting and I'm always typing and looking for names and titles. So climate change, why it matters to you as women. Food, water, shelter, health. That came right out of Julia's slide. Those are pretty big reasons. Let's come to the chase. Food, water, shelter, and health. All of those are impacted.
Mm-hmm.
slug it for women, all of whom have asked, but what can I do?
Mhm.
Right.
Because we would offer a lot of different possibilities.
Maybe that's the title of this, but what can I do? You know, somewhere in this mush of words, you're the writer. I'm happy to brainstorm with the two of you, but something like that. But what can I do?
Mhm.
Give us a chance to tell you something like that. That's a great kind of catchy
Mhm.
title. And why?
Holly, knowing the group and the board and what lands when you propose, do you feel like you have enough, or?
Well, Kathy said she'd take the lead, so that definitely has more weight than the staff person. It's just that it sounds like we're talking about a live event and a collaboration with other organizations. So it seems like there needs to be some other kind of background work that needs to be done, like linking up with these other organizations, as we did for the panel last March when we had the League of Women Voters work with us and when we had the Women's Chamber work with us. So we need to lay some of that groundwork. I don't think the board's going to have any trouble with this exploring of these other relationships because we have those. But if you're talking about a live event, it's probably something that would have it happen after Willa, which of course gives time for planning of a really great lineup. So, Kathy and I and maybe Barbara can work together on whatever that board report is, but I just have to get that to them by noon on Thursday.
Mhm.
Thursday.
That's good.
Could be a little bit tight.
Well, it doesn't have to be the whole plan. Like I said, I think it just needs to be, look at this book club attendee list and this group thinks that these 3 things are the next steps, and just sort of a permission to move forward, to reach out to the other organizations, to pursue possible speakers and maybe sponsors. And this would be a live event that would happen beyond Willa, and that would be all that would need to be known at this time, right?
Yes.
You're saying live event or live Zoom event.
Yeah, I mean, it could be
Yeah.
that I think, the preferred delivery method would be live. However, it might be a virtual or it might be a combination of the two. It may start out with something that's a Zoom and it might end up being something live. That still has to be hatched out.
What if the teaser is Fran doing 5 great interviews?
Mhm.
Because
Well, that's part of the planning stages right now. We're going to get the board to approve. Then we're going to have a planning session where we look at all these ideas and decide, how to move forward. I don't think there's anything more compelling than a live event. And that's what I would want to focus on. Dr. Farzan, if you were involved, if you participated in the Scripps event, he believes that the summertime is when that is going to open up for people getting together again. He doesn't think it's before then at all. So that's, we can make this happen because you know why? We're women and we make it.
Holly, I think another thing I would highlight is last I heard membership was somewhere around 100. And that was a while ago. I heard that number. I don't know where it is now. But this could probably help with creating the awareness about the organization and the fact that they're addressing head on a challenging topic that needs to be discussed that hasn't been discussed. So I think you also can sell it as positioning executive women as a leader and engaging in this dialogue.
Right. We've got 158, and Kathy, we have 8 new members coming up for approval for the board. So we're definitely on an upswing, and that's exciting. And we'll just, the challenge is like just with our event this Friday is getting people's attention in this Zoom world. So to say we're planning this big climate change conference, it's going to be a Zoom, I think will make people maybe not be as excited about it. But I think with Kathy's energy that we can do something live, and that would be something great to look forward to. And there might be other avenues that we haven't even discussed because we need to go through some of the channels, but we're going to be launching a podcast series. So maybe Fran's situation is a podcast, part of the podcast series that's going to lead up to Willa and then go on beyond. So there's just all kinds of roads we can travel down, but I think just getting the 3 things of look at this group, here's what they want to do, is it okay to further explore, is enough for now, because there's so much is changing from day to day, month to month.
It also might be helpful, if anybody knows this type of person, to find a woman who is well-versed in this area to be the guide, so that when we run through various things we're interested in doing, she could point out what is useful and what is not, what's possible and what's not. Anyway, I think it would be very nice to have a guide.
Good point. Okay, I think it's 7 o'clock. I hate to conclude it because we've got such a great conversation going, and keeping the momentum going. I mean, there's no more Zooms scheduled unless there should be. You tell me, Holly.
Well, I think we have the board meet at the end of this month, and in a couple weeks, everybody that's on this, that's registered for book club, whether they're here or not, will get a follow-up email.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Fran.
You're welcome, Holly. Thank you.